This week at Rotary in 1941, the club's iron lung was put into service for the first time. Mabel Ruth Everhart, a 21-year-old nursing student at Baptist Hospital, became seriously ill at the end of October 1941. By October 31st, respiratory paralysis set in, and Miss Everhart was in critical condition. Doctors at Baptist were in the process of having an iron lung rushed from Roanoke when it was remembered that the Rotary Club in High Point owned an iron lung. Members of the High Point Fire Department, who are trained to transport and operate the Rotary Club's iron lung, were at Baptist Hospital within 30 minutes of receiving the call and had the device in operation. Miss Everhart spent the night in the iron lung, and by the morning of November 1st, she had recovered sufficiently to be removed from it. Baptist Hospital Superintendent Smith Hageman returned the iron lung to High Point the next week, along with the letters of appreciation to High Point Mayor O. Arthur Kirkman, the High Point Fire Department, and the High Point Rotary Club. In his letter, Mr. Hageman expressed his belief that the iron lung saved the life of Miss Mabel Everhart. Beginning in 1936, work with crippled children became a major focus for the High Point Rotary Club, as polio, widely considered a children's disease, was spreading more rapidly each year. By the mid-1930s, the National Infantile Paralysis Foundation, later to be known as the March of Dimes, was promoting the use of iron lungs to combat the respiratory paralysis suffered by many polio victims. In 1930s, the iron lung cost about $1,500, the equivalent of $21,000 today. The device was also heavy and difficult to transport. As a result, very few communities had ready access to an iron lung in case of an emergency. Beginning in 1937, High Point Rotary produced annual charity shows to raise funds for its work with crippled children. As the funds grew, club leaders began to consider how best to use them. At a meeting one day, a member noted, "Gentlemen, if an iron lung had been available several years ago when my son was so ill, I think he would be alive today." And that statement, only an idea at the time, became a reality, for the members of the club adopted the suggestion with enthusiasm. When High Point Rotary purchased an iron lung for High Point in 1941, a request was made of the city to provide a suitable truck to transport it. When the city declined, our club purchased the truck too and gave it to the city. The club retained ownership of the iron lung, for which it established only one rule: this machine shall be available to any man, woman, or child, race, color, or creed, at any time and at any place where it is needed. The Infantile Paralysis Foundation cited our club as a national model for effective deployment of an iron lung on a regional basis. During its first 6 months in service, the Rotary Iron Lung spent more time treating patients in Winston-Salem than in High Point. By late May 1942, it was clear to Smith Hageman that Baptist Hospital needed an iron lung of its own. However, another High Point patient would be treated by Rotary's iron lung at Baptist Hospital in September. A patient High Point Rotary would follow closely. In March 1942, Miss Betty Jean Miller and her mother performed in the annual Rotary Review, All American Follies. Betty Jean as a dancer and her mother in the chorus. In 1942, Review was staged to raise funds to help cover the cost of the iron lung and the truck. On September 18th, Betty Jean was rushed to Baptist Hospital with breathing paralysis from polio. To the chagrin of doctors at Baptist, their iron lung was not available, so the High Point lung was rushed to Winston-Salem. Members of the High Point Rotary Club expressed keen interest in Miss Miller's condition and followed details closely. Sadly, Betty Jean Miller died at Baptist Hospital on September 22nd at the age of 17. In the summer of 1944, Life magazine reported, in the town of Hickory, in the western foothills of North Carolina, more than 100 children lie in hastily built beds. The suddenness with which this disease struck overwhelmed ordinary medical facilities. The National Foundation for Infantile Paralysis mobilized local and national resources to set up an emergency hospital. Iron lungs, 12 in all, were rushed to Hickory from across the southeast. Being one of the few iron lungs in the country with its own truck, High Point Rotary Iron Lung was among the first to arrive. It would spend a great deal of time in Hickory until November, when the 1944 polio season ended. The Rotary Iron Lung continued to save lives through the rest of the decade, but by early 1950, changes were coming to the fight against polio. Increased funding through the March of Dimes, advances in respiratory devices, and most notably, introduction of the Salk vaccine led to less need for the iron lungs of the 1930s and 40s. In 1954, High Point Rotary and the City Council agreed to donate the iron lung to the new hospital and the iron lung truck to the High Point Rescue Squad. For 12 years, the Rotary Club of High Point Iron Lung made a difference in the lives of many people, including Mabel Ruth Everhart, the first person to benefit from it. Mabel Ruth Everhart completed her training as a nurse, married, raised a family, and retired after a long career as a registered nurse at Baptist Hospital. Mabel Ruth Everhart Anderson passed away on Christmas Eve 2003 at age 83 after a long life well lived. We like to think our iron lung made a difference that mattered.